This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a T&M show where we put the South at the center. I'm Dhanya, Rajendran, your host. Joining me in the studio are Pooja, Prasanna, our reporting chief. Hi, Pooja.
Hello.
And Nandini, Chandrasekhar, senior editor. I don't even know what you are anymore. So senior.
Is that code for you're so old?
No, of course not.
Not here
Nandini.
again. Thanks, Dhanya.
I just want to say that I don't know how many of you have this problem. I have this thing, sleepy eyes. If I put some chemical or some old kajal or something, I feel like my eyes are sleeping and I have no control over it. So today is my sleepy eye day. So in case I just doze off in between or I'm yawning.
I'll wake you up.
Yes, please do. So yeah, this is, I guess, one more episode this year and we are done with South Central for 2025. I hope that you have enjoyed the episodes till now. If you have, then do share South Central episodes with your friends, family, enemies, anyone. Tell them to follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple and all other podcast platforms. The only thing that I want to tell you this week is that we have done a bouquet of stories on the Dilip verdict. This is reportage which spread over many months. We also have a complaint from the Judicial Officers Association, which is judges and magistrates, against our reporting. It's been sent to the Kerala High Court. Let's see what comes out of that. But yes, do read all the reports. And as we all come to a close of this year, do become a subscriber if you haven't already. Because as you've seen in the last few months, we have pivoted towards paywall more and more because we want people to support us at least like that. So do become a subscriber or you can contribute to a reporting fund. And now we will go to the headlines with Pooja.
We start with the story that Dhanya was mentioning. Kerala actor assault case. The survivor complains to police over identity leak and online abuse. If you've at all gone on the internet and read anything on this, the algorithm would have thrown up many such things. This is a week after the verdict. In the 2017 Kerala actor assault case, the survivor has approached the police alleging cyber harassment and circulation of a video linked to one of the convicts that reveals her identity.
Yeah, so people have been asking us that you guys put out her picture and her name. That is with written permission. The law is very clear that if I use it once, I have to take written permission. If I use it twice, I have to take written permission twice. So we have taken. Now, as far as this police complaint is concerned, the survivor met Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan at an event and she handed over to the Chief Minister this complaint. This video of this guy called Martin Anthony, who's accused number 2, he was the driver of the car which the survivor was in. He's the one who swaps position and then allows Manigandan to become the driver. This guy has done an 18-minute atrocious video. I think it must have been done in 2022 because he says that I've just gotten out on bail. So he got bail in 2022 from the Supreme Court. And I think he's using a teleprompter at least the beginning because his eyes go la 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 like that. And to anybody who's been sending me this video saying, did you see this? Is it true? I just want to ask them, boss, do you have iota of a brain like iota? This guy is saying stuff like, the survivor took my phone and she was messaging. Why? Because the case against him is that he was using the phone, communicating to Pulsar Suni and letting him know where the car was because the entire plan was hatched by him and Suni is what the judge herself says. Then he says all sorts of random crap about how Manju Warrior and Liberty Bashir and Lal, Ramya Nambeshan, any enemy of Dilip is behind this entire planning. And I don't know what he's trying.
That is a conspiracy the judge ought to believe according to him.
Yeah, and he's suggesting that, now how foolish are people to watch this video first thing? Even if it is okay till the first 2 or 3 minutes, okay, where he's like, I'm a poor guy, this one took my phone, they were conspiring, nothing happened to the car. There was no rape inside the car. It was all very happy. After a point of time, he gets back into the car where Suni, the survivor, and he are there. And then they just discuss the entire plot with him. They are like, Suni, now you will go to jail. Then you will write a letter. In that letter, you'll be very friendly to Dilip. You will not threaten him, okay? Then you will call Nadir Shah and Appunni. Nadir Shah is Dilip's best friend for life. And Appunni is a driver. Then they plan the entire conspiracy or whatever for the next 3 years in that car, in front of a strange person who they've hired for the day. And then while going, they also kiss and then they will tell each other, they will tell this guy, do not reveal this to anyone because our gundas will be behind you.
Are we sure this was not another bad movie script?
I don't know. I'm
Sounds
just wondering.
like it.
Yeah, I'm wondering people who are watching this and sharing it thinking, oh, there is some conspiracy. First thing, I'm questioning whether you have an iota of a brain first. Second is, are you really suspecting that a rape or a sexual assault has not happened? This is the greatest travesty that you can do to a woman. No wonder she's given a police complaint. Please give more police complaints. And lawyers have also shared this on Facebook and Twitter and everything. It is not just normal people, even people who understand the consequence of this have been putting this out. But to others, just don't watch.
Kerala cops file FIR after the News Minute report reveals illegal sale of theatre CCTV footage. I'm sure you've seen our series, and this is an impact. Megha Mukundan went through hours and hours of terrible footage to put the story together. So very, very proud of the work that our young reporters are doing.
But the series is not ended. We are looking at the leakage of CCTV footage. There'll be a link in the description. You can give funding to that series. Next story is about hospital CCTV footage and what's happening with that.
Yeah, that's scarier actually. Moving on to Karnataka, hate speech law brought in the interest of state and society. Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar. He's defended the Karnataka Hate Speech and Hate Crimes Prevention and Control Bill of 2025. And he's on Tuesday said that the law has been brought in the interest of the state and society. My question to Mr. D.K. Shivkumar is, who are you defining as state and society? Because clearly this is a law that can be used as a weapon by whoever is in power. Today it's Congress, tomorrow it can be anybody else. So
and the Congress never learns because they know the BJP will come to power and use this
against them.
Not only against them, they will use it in a much better, much organized, much weaponized way against everybody.
Case in point, UAPA.
Yeah. No, so there are a lot of people who believe that there has to be a law for hate speech. I'm not saying there are lawyers and legal experts who have said there should be a law for hate speech. But the problem with this law is two things. One, it is defining hate crime and is defining hate speech. Then it puts hate speech under hate crime and makes hate crime punishable. So why have we given two definitions and then putting one inside the other? I think the reason for bringing the law is that if you follow the Arnesh Kumar guidelines, you can't randomly, the Supreme Court basically says don't arrest people who are charged under sections which have punishment less than 7 years. So in this, they've given the maximum punishment is 10 years. So the basic intent of the law is if somebody puts out a tweet, at least for some time you can arrest them, right? My biggest issue with the law is it again gives executive powers to the government, to a bureaucrat, police, whoever, to take down tweets, stories, whatever it is. And this is something that we have opposed in multiple other laws. So if the same Congress has opposed the BJP while it brought some of these laws, then why do it? But I have to call out all these right-wing warriors on every social media platform possible who suddenly discovered freedom of expression, free speech. Why do you have this law? Brother, where were you when BJP was bringing all these laws? We were talking about then and we are doing now also.
Of course, the PIB, what it's done at the union level. So it's selective outrage, but yeah. Moving on to another story from Karnataka, Chilume voter data theft case. I'm sure you remember the series that we did 2 years ago. Karnataka government set to move High Court to lift stay on the FIRs. The state government has appointed senior advocate Ravi Varma Kumar to represent them before the Karnataka High Court, seeking to vacate the stay on 2 FIRs registered against voter data theft accused, that is the Chilume Trust.
Yes, again, another impact. This was an investigation we did 2 years ago where we found that this 3 years ago. 2021.
23. We're still in 25. One more week you can say 2 years ago.
No, we did in 2022 end because election.
Correct, was for 20.
Pooja.
Yeah.
Okay, 2022 we did.
December.
22.
Yeah, so
22
3
December.
Years.
So
3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And then after we did this investigation and found that this particular private agency was collecting voter data, the Election Commission asked for recalibration of the voter list in 3 constituencies. But my point is not that. There is one element of the story, Bhuvan just put the story in the links, which has not gotten a lot of attention. So this guy who was running Chilume, his name is Ravi Kumar Krishnappa. We went to his village in Nelamangala, which is in the outskirts of Bengaluru. Trust me, people showed us passbooks. In fact, it is there in that story. In their passbooks, you can see some farmer, he would have got 3 lakh rupees on one day. The next day, they would have taken the entire money out and as cash given to Ravi Kumar Krishnappa. Where was this money coming from? It was coming from this union government's vehicle, special purpose vehicle called CSEE governance. So our thing was that there is some money laundering happening, or he is getting some indirect payment, and the CSEE governance is being used. We ourselves saw at least 10 to 15 people who got amounts between 1 lakh to 5 lakhs in their accounts, and this would be withdrawn and given to this man. Nobody investigated that. Neither did the union government investigate it, nor did the Congress. Hopefully they'll take it up this time.
Moving on to Telangana, Bondi Beach attack. Telangana DGP says shooter of Indian origin had no prior record. Our colleague, in fact, went to the house of the accused. The family said that they've not been in contact with them because at least for 2-3 years they've cut him off.
Yeah, so the sister and the brother stays in Hyderabad, and the mother. They're saying that for some years they've not had any touch. They have come to India 4 or 5, I think 6 times. He left to Australia as a student in 1998, got married to someone there and stayed back.
So the father, Sajid Akram, was born in Hyderabad. The son was born in Australia.
And is an Australian citizen.
Yeah. Telangana Speaker set to pronounce orders on disqualification of 5 BRS MLAs. The Assembly Speaker, Gaddam Prasad Kumar, will pronounce orders on Wednesday. Hopefully by the time we are done shooting, it will be done. This is on the petitions for disqualification of 5 out of 10 BRS MLAs who allegedly shifted loyalties to the ruling Congress. This is life coming a full circle for the BRS because this was their MO for as long as they were in power. Then a headline from Power Trip, which is our weekly political newsletter. As I keep reminding you, if you're not a subscriber yet, become one so you can get access to this. We put in a lot of effort to bring you this. Manrega revamp faces dissent from key BJP ally, that's the TDP. If you might have seen, then there was a lot of also yelling on Republic TV. If you're still watching Republic TV, I don't know why. But if you did watch their primetime shows, Arnab Goswami, the editor-in-chief, was yelling at TDP spokespersons and representatives. That was very fishy, right?
Were you just terrible to your former employer?
No.
Huh? Were
No.
you, Pooja?
I was just being true to the people.
Didn't she say, Nandini, are you still watching Republic TV? Huh?
I think I can.
Okay.
Free speech, remember?
Yeah.
But the interesting part was while covering the Indigo crisis, Republic went after TDP, a BJP ally. What went down? We've gone into depth.
So this VB G Ram G bill.
Oh God, good, congratulations.
Oh
You
my
got
God.
it
I mean,
right.
they're so
Cyrus
clever,
G-Ram,
right?
yeah.
After a point of time, people were saying J Ram G bill, J Ram G bill, G Ram G bill.
No, but I think that was a very clever deviation. They knew that people will outrage on the name and forget the deeper damage they've done to the act.
No, we
Which
are
is-
much more intelligent. We are not going to
Yeah.
outrage on the name. That's only for
Congress
10
did.
seconds.
In the parliament, they went after the name, but the deeper damage they've done needs a deep
So it is
look.
not just TDP. YSRCP is also going to
Correct.
oppose the bill.
Moving on to Tamil Nadu, 2026 Tamil Nadu Assembly elections, Piyush Goyal to lead BJP AIDMK seat sharing talks. I don't know how much he knows about Tamil Nadu, but okay. Union Minister Piyush Goyal, who had earlier played a key role in managing alliance and seat-sharing negotiations between BJP and ADMK, has been entrusted once again with the crucial responsibility ahead of the 2026 election. Quite a task, I must say, he has, because I don't think ADMK will cede very easily, so there will be a lot of push and pull
They
on
did
that front.
have their meeting last week where they decided to handle the entire thing, especially seat sharing with, and they were unhappy with BJP holding talks with other partners. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it turns out.
Tamil Nadu DGP Abhay Kumar Singh cracks down on illegal orderly system. The personnel will be reassigned to regular policing duties with immediate effect. I must say, Dhanya, there was a couple of stories I'd done a few years ago about how these people who are supposed to be on orderly duties, right, have met with accidents, who've gotten killed, but they've shown to be on leave because they were actually shopping for the family of a police officer. They were taking the kids to school, and because that couldn't come out, they were just shown and they fudged the documents. So it's a very exploitative system.
And I feel a sense of deja vu. There are so many cops who have come and said we will abolish the system, and it
nothing
doesn't get
really
abolished.
happens,
Yeah.
Absurd and fabricated. Arapur Iyakam slams police action against Tiruvannamalai farmers. Anti-corruption group has slammed the Tamil Nadu police for arresting farmers protesting soil removal from a local lake, accusing the government of criminalizing peaceful protest. Another headline from Tamil Nadu, Toothukudi gang rape, migrant labor contractor and 2 minors have been arrested. A 27-year-old labor contractor and 2 juveniles were arrested in Toothukudi for allegedly sexually assaulting a migrant woman and attacking her husband in a secluded area. A headline from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana asked Supreme Court to curb Andhra from expanding the Pollavaram project. The Telangana government filed a writ petition before the Supreme Court alleging that the expansion of the Pollavaram Barkar-Cherla project by Andhra was in violation of binding tribunal awards and AP State Reorganization Act. I will read one last headline. This is our own story. Inside Prasar Bharati, how taxpayer money was used for influencer content. This is a Doordarshan project that's worth crores and a YouTube empire hungry for reach. I'm not going to tell you more, but this is
there's
about,
curly tails in it.
yes, a lot of curly tails in it.
Yeah.
So go and read it. This is by our the News Laundry's reporter Basant Kumar. That's
Okay.
it for this week.
Yeah, so we've been saying that the last month of December, because Bhuvan has been lazy, Bhuvan told us that do only one topic for every discussion. He says it's because it's a year-ender, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, he
fair
doesn't want to
enough.
set
Yeah.
up guests for 2 topics, so he told us to stick to one. But we're very glad. So this,
No, but I think a lot of people were telling us to look at one topic in a more detailed way as well. So
yeah.
this
So we did on investigative journalism, we have done on communalism and secularism. Today we're going to talk about our pet topic, federalism. Joining us is Rathin Roy, a noted economist. He served as an economic advisor with the 13th Finance Commission. He's also been a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. He's worked with the UNDP. Thank you, Mr. Roy, for joining us here on South Central.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so this is like the year-ender episodes that we are having, where we have taken one topic to discuss. We have done on investigative journalism, and we were a very optimistic lot while discussing about investigative
surprisingly
journalism.
so.
Yeah. And previously we did on communalism and secularism and how has India fared in 2025. I know that when you look at federalism per se, it's not tangible change in just 1 year. These are things happening over many years. But still, what are your thoughts about what has been happening over the last few years, either this government, previous, and all the actions put together?
Well, over the last few years, if you look at the record, let's say just after COVID, then the 2 main things that have happened have both not happened. To quote Sherlock Holmes, or rather, whoever wrote Sherlock Holmes, 2 dogs that did not bark in the federal space. The first was there wasn't a census. So we actually have no idea, except speculatively, what's happening to the relative populations in different parts of India. What is the actual derived fertility rate? What's the gender ratio? And what is the occupational breakup of people in different parts of the country, in different regions of the country? That is one. The second, of course, is there has been a promised delimitation, which is due. Noises have been made regarding the delimitation, but nothing definitive has either been agreed or announced. And therefore, the 2 big tasks of federalism, other than the Finance Commission report, which was supposed to have been taken up in this decade, the decade is now half over, are still in abeyance. And this is important because of longer term trends, which have been consistently worrying me and many others about the tensions that a polity such as India is going to face over the next 20 years.
So one thing that is in discussion right now, if you look at the news right now, is the change that the government wants to bring to Manrega. This new
VBG Ramji.
Jai Ramji, the new bill that they want. There's been a lot of criticism. We have in fact reported that it's not just the opposition. Even the alliance parties are unhappy, like the TDP is unhappy with the bill. The YSRCP, which has sort of maintained status quo on most things, will also oppose. So the BJP looks like is going to get some pushback. But what are your thoughts on the bill itself? Is that everybody's been calling it a hit on federalism?
It's not a hit on federalism. It's just that the states used to pay 20%, the non-special category states, and now they'd have to pay 40%. That is negotiable. And because it's a centrally sponsored scheme. So states are quite free not to implement Narega if they don't want to. And if you're a prosperous state, I can understand the Telugu Desam saying it, Andhra Pradesh is the least prosperous state in South India. But if you're a prosperous state, you really shouldn't be resorting to Narega, should you? If your per capita income, like in Tamil Nadu or Kerala, is close to Indonesia, and if you make all the money you say you make in Telangana and Karnataka and Maharashtra, then why do you need Narega? Narega is a last stop, backstop program in rural areas for the absolute wretched. So if you don't need it, you don't need to pay for it. Point is that you do need it. So I think what this points to, in fact, rather than talking about federalism, because I would say states in the north and the east would be far more affected, they're much poorer, is that the richer states also need the same sorts of last-stage backstopping programs that the poorer states need. So it's both a comment on the sort of weakness of and fragility of southern economies than on federalism as such. Like I said, don't want it, don't pay for it. It's okay. I mean, I thought Karnataka was very rich. I thought Kerala was very rich. So they can all afford not to have Narega. Now, why do they want a program that throws 115 days work as charity to a bunch of people who, if they did not get that work, would starve? There should be plenty of work for everybody. But there isn't. We know that. We know that the problem in many South Indian states, Karnataka, is that Bangalore rural and Bangalore urban and Mysuru collectively are, give you 70% of the state's GDP. There are parts of Karnataka and parts of where I live in Telangana, which are as poor as UP and Bihar. And therefore people that are desperate for work. And therefore the state governments, need these programs. And all that the central government is saying, well, if you need them, you'll have to pay more for them than you did in the first place. In fact, the program has become slightly more generous. It has increased the number of days for which you can demand Narega from 100 to 125. Now, what I don't know from the reporting of this program, whatever it is called now, the Employment Guarantee Program is supposed to be demand driven, which means you can allocate a budgetary number for it, but you can't cap it. Now, I'm not clear from the reporting on the matter whether the central government has said that their contribution will not just be 60%, but will also be capped. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that they have said so or not said so. I can't tell from the reporting. It is opaque. Right? If they did that, that would be a serious matter. Because then they would be changing a fundamental sort of cornerstone of Indian policy, which underpin what used to be called Narega, that it was not supposed to be capped, and it was demand-driven. It is, in fact, the only demand-driven program that we have in this country. And if that has happened, that's a serious matter, but that's not necessarily a federal infraction. And the richer states have an option. They can always uncap it if they want in case it was capped. I don't know if it was capped or not. Second thing they've said, which is, again, nothing to do with federalism, which has to do more with rich people and poor people all over the country, is that in seasons when there is peak demand for agricultural labor, Narega will not be offered. The only reason they could be doing that is that, Narega also served as a very effective minimum wage. And in times when there was demand for agricultural labor's bargaining power went up. Because if the private farmer said, we will not pay you X, they could say, no, we have Narega, and we're going to resist you. So perhaps the current government doesn't want that sort of resistance. They want the wretched to remain wretched. And all these criticisms, therefore, can be applied. That it's no longer demand-driven, perhaps. The fact that it's not going to be applied in peak agricultural season means that the bargaining power of the poor is reduced, perhaps. These arguments can be applied. But I don't see the federal issue here.
No, but Section 4.5 of the new bill says that the central government shall determine the state-wise normative allocation for each financial year based on objective parameters as may be prescribed by the central government. So the criticism is that the union government will basically decide what is the allocation and how it will be prescribed, and then states also end up paying more for what is the allocation decided by the union government.
Well, the states are free to challenge the basis of the allocation. The allocation for Narega is basically done on the basis of the population of dependent or working in agriculture in a state and the estimated demand for the allocation. So it's a zero-sum game between states. Therefore, it's not a federal issue. Unless somebody is alleging, and I'm not seeing that ruling party states will be preferred, in which case Chandrababu Naidu should have no problem accepting this Narega, as opposed to opposition states. I've not seen that being said. They're saying objective criteria. So if people don't trust the fact that the criteria will be objective, they should come out and say so politically. So it's not a federal issue again. The center decides who else will decide? How can the states decide what the criteria will be? Perhaps the NDC could get together and decide. But that's all old hat now. Earlier, perhaps you could consult, using the Planning Commission or Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog is no longer a statutory body. It has only recommendatory powers. The Planning Commission is long gone, so this is not new. And therefore, it has to be the center that will propose and implement criteria. And as long as they are transparent and therefore can be critiqued by individual states, I don't see the problem, because it is a central scheme. And therefore, it is, as long as the center is being reasonable and objective with this criteria, it's okay that they will set forth. And it is up to states, including Chandrababu Naidu, whether ND or otherwise, to oppose the criteria or to speak against them if they feel that they are unfair and not objective. But it would be prejudging the matter unless we actually see what the criteria are. And historically, I think states have not had a problem with the criteria as framed earlier. The center always framed those criteria. There were a sort of consensus decision. The states used to be they were consulted and informed about the criteria. That is normal practice. If the center is saying it will not do so, then I'd like to hear them say so. I find it difficult to believe, but anything is possible nowadays. And those would be grounds for grouse, federal grouse. But those grounds haven't arisen yet.
I think the catch is in the words that you use, right? Transparent, if they are more consultative. And that's what the states have been
criticism, they take
Yes.
critique and they're objective.
Correct. I think that's where the states have also been pushing back more and more, right? Because I hear that
No state has pushed back except Andhra Pradesh has only objected to the 60-40 change. I have not seen anything coming out of any other state on the matter. If the criteria are transparent and the word consultation is not mentioned, but there is consultation, then it's exactly what it was like earlier. The center has the last word on the matter. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. So they may consult, but there's no veto power the states ever had on the centrally sponsored scheme. The only veto power they have is not to take it up. Like Tamil Nadu did with the new education policy, with education centrally sponsored scheme, following the fact they said, okay, we don't like your NEP, we're not going to participate in it. That the states are free to do even today. Who's stopping them?
But here's the catch, right? When they say we don't want to avail a certain scheme that is tied with a certain amount of money, they want that money to develop education.
And if they want money, then they should they'll have to negotiate these matters with the central government. Nothing prevents Tamil Nadu from starting its own Narega. In my own state, Maharashtra, we had a Narega before Narega years ago, right? So you can say, okay, I don't like your Narega, I'm going to do it with my own money. Up to you. Now you want the money and then you want it on your terms. That's fine, you can, but you have to negotiate your terms then. And that negotiation has not yet happened in this new round.
The problem is that when states want the money from the centrally sponsored schemes, they're asking for money that is from taxes, right? Especially states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. They're asking for much less than what they have contributed to. And since the new GST regime has come, the cess has increased. The union government is keeping more money with itself. And in the sense, centrally sponsored schemes, they can put any condition they want. That is completely subjective, not consultative. So, for example, in the PM Shri funds, if Tamil Nadu wants those funds to take it to the next level, I don't want to compare myself with a Bihar or with a Uttar Pradesh. So, I want that money so I can improve the education. We're not perfect. We want to keep getting better. But I am not given that option because there's no negotiation.
There are
because
fixed
of
parameters.
Politics. Yeah. So, you cannot divorce the politics from how these schemes and the funds are disbursed. And that's where the problem is, isn't it?
No, look, it's one thing to say that the imposition of cesses by the central government is unfair. And it is unfair to everybody, not just to the southern states. It's also unfair to Bihar or UP. It's unfair to any state government that the central government basically steals part of what I call the divisible pool, what is actually called the divisible pool. It's nobody's father's money. The taxes that are collected by the central government on income and consumption belong collectively to the Union of India and the states. So when the Union government imposes a cess, which was a measure meant to be temporary for a specific purpose, that does that permanently and does that in ever-increasing measure, and this has been happening since the UPA, then that is definitely raw in terms of intergovernmental fiscal arrangements. That violates the spirit and the letter of intergovernmental fiscal arrangements. On this, there is no doubt, and several finance commissions have said so. Fine. That's one issue. That has to do with the money that the state should get vis-a-vis the money that the union keeps. But that cannot then be translated to say that, therefore, when the center has any centrally sponsored scheme, and I'll explain why in a minute, that centrally sponsored scheme should involve greater consultation with the states because you've levied a cess. You can't conflate the two. And let me give you an example why. Tomorrow, the central government says, I'm going to abolish all centrally sponsored schemes, and I'll face the electorate on this matter. And I'll spend that entire money on the Indian Army and the railways. They're well within their rights to do that. The centrally sponsored schemes, in fact, are unusual. Now, there's a reason why the center does it, which I understand, that no government is going to, and maybe this government, because they don't really operate on the economy. They win elections in other ways, and I'm not denying that they win elections. They win the popular mandate very effectively in other ways, in many parts of the country, but it's nothing to do with economic prosperity. But if economic prosperity mattered, then very few governments, UPA, NDA, anybody can go out there and tell the people of India that, I've kept the fiscal deficit low, I've put money in the railways, and I manage your defense forces, now please vote for. It doesn't work that way, right? Because electorates respond to what have you done for my health, education, Ladli Behna, cycle diya, So then the central government, I've written about this, over time, gets into the business that is actually the core business of the states, to share political credit. And that is the genesis of the centrally sponsored scheme. Right? Now, as I said, states have empowerment here. They can say, no, I don't want your money. I'll run my own centrally sponsored scheme. If I were the government of, say, Goa or Delhi, I could well do that. I suspect strongly if I'm the government of Kerala and I was not so unlucky with my revenue base, I could do that. But I don't do that because, that money is there and I want it, not really. And the center is offering it. And remember, the counterfactual is, okay, I don't give you any schemes. I put all the money into railways and defense. Right? So it is not possible to conflate the central government's decision to offer, and I'm using that word advisedly, centrally sponsored schemes to the states, and the illegitimacy of the central government's using cesses as a means to prop up their very weak fiscal position. The two are different matters. On the GST, the recent reduction in rates, I must confess, somewhat to my surprise, was completely consensual. No one made a noise or voted against it. It was unanimously passed. So if there's less money coming in from GST, well, sorry, that's how it is. Now, when it comes to share of tax, then it is true that the relatively higher consumption states get relatively less of the center share of the GST. But I'm very amused by this because Tamil Nadu was for years arguing against the GST, arguing that it's a producer state. That was absolute nonsense. From day one, it was nonsense. And I told the then finance secretary that. Because high production states also high consumption states. Okay, if there's one state that doesn't consume as much as you would expect given its level of GSTP, that is Gujarat. But if you leave that aside, high production states are high consumption states. But the genesis of the relatively wealthy states getting less than they would have got from GST, were there to be no CGST, is actually the Finance Commission devolution formula. Because the CGST is divided, and the IGST too by default, is divided according to the Finance Commission devolution formula. And that formula has a progressive element in it, where basically, I think at the moment it is 48% of the sources, I can't remember, something between 40 and 50% of the horizontal devolution is determined by some measure of the inverse of per capita income. So the poorer you are, the more money you get. That's the formula. That has nothing to do with where GST is collected. As far as GST is concerned, the states get what they collect, right? So I don't see the problem in this. The politics of the situation is that the centrally sponsored schemes are politically important to the center because they demonstrate last mile reach of the center, and the Prime Minister's mug is on every centrally sponsored scheme. I don't know now, some Bapu's mug may be there. And that is important politically for the Union of India, for whoever's in charge of the Union of India. It was important for the UPA, it is important for the NDA. But it is not a compulsory scheme. If people want to play that political game and don't want the money, they can say so.
But I think when it came to NEP and PM Shri, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and all have chosen not to take the money.
They've chosen not to take only because they don't want to comply, but they want the money. No government will say, I don't want more money, so I can do what I want with it, right?
The controversy in Kerala
it's a
they try to...
scheme. There is a conditionality attached to every centrally sponsored scheme because it is central money that is the majority of the money.
Why is the union government unilaterally deciding what those conditions are? Because most of the state governments complain that we are not taken into consultation, that money is not generosity, it's not largesse by anyone.
That debate was lost when the Planning Commission was dissolved. And that's been a long time. When the Planning Commission was dissolved, the entire concept of the states and the center consultatively deciding, and there was a formula called the Gargill formula, it's a long time ago, what resources would go through the planning mode was ended. Now with centrally sponsored schemes, it is the center's money. So let me give you a counterfactual. It would be legitimate for all states to argue or some states to argue. I've not heard them arguing it. There is a remarkable lack of sophistication in state governments' negotiations, I find, much to my disappointment, even the best of them. That actually, you know what? Instead of the center taking such a large proportion of the divisible pool, increase the state share and stop all centrally sponsored schemes. You can do that, with or without the Finance Commission formula. This is a separate issue. So you can say, okay, let the next Finance Commission determine the legitimate vertical devolution, that is how much goes to the center and how much goes to all the states. By saying that the center's job is not to be doing whatever Murari Bapu or Mahatma Gandhi, Narega and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and whatever it is called, health scheme and Pradhan Mantri ye yojana, Pradhan Mantri wo yojana, mujhe yaad nahi hai. There's a plethora of them, and this is, by the way, it's bipartisan. Both national parties have played this game, Congress and BJP. Okay, the BJP has just taken it and as so many things done it better than the Congress. So you have all these schemes. Say that we don't need them. These are well within the domain of the state, and just because they happen to be on the concurrent list, and the state, sometimes the center in fact uses the argument of eminent domain, which is that they are empowered constitutionally to intervene even in state subjects under the constitutional lists, should they deem it in the national interest. So if the states all argued in their memoranda, I've not seen them argue so, let's stop all this. Let the center concentrate on defense and railways and what's in the central list. And let this money become part of the state's share. That would be a genuine political federal discussion that I would love to join issue with. But you don't want to join issue with that, and you want the state centrally sponsored schemes to happen. It is the center's legitimate money, and then you want to grumble. I think that is political grandstanding.
No, I agree. I think there's politics on both sides. But yes, zooming out, I don't see the need for cess to be collected and that, the union government having complete control over it. And then, because we all know that no two states are similar, despite us being the same country. The needs of each state is very, very diverse.
And within the state also.
Within the state. So every state government that is legitimately elected should also have the right to see how I want to develop this state. As opposed to, say, Bihar could have a different view, Gujarat could have a different view based on where they are. So why should the union government have, one size fits all sort of a formula?
But where is the union government gets that power the moment you have a centrally sponsored scheme. Moment you say that something is centrally sponsored, it has to be one size fits all. You can tweak it around, But there is no option because it is the government of the Union of India and it must therefore have a uniform approach to all states. So politically, I've been very clear about this. I've spoken about this with several politicians from different states. Earlier when they happened to be in opposition to the Congress and now when they happen to be in opposition to the BJP. That if you want to make an argument, you have to argue collectively that the center is spending too much in too many areas and we would like that to stop. And your autonomy will come when that stops. One. Then we come to the question of whether the formula is fair or unfair. That's a much bigger issue. That's a different issue. But the first step is that the vertical devolution, as it's called, that must change from being preponderantly now the remit of the center to becoming more and more the remit of the states. And that has not happened. And if you look at the center's core responsibilities, its expenditure on general services, especially defense, is stagnant or in fact getting smaller and smaller as a percentage of GDP. Its expenditure on the railways is where it was always. Okay, I don't know what Vande Bharat and all that, but that is all internal. I mean, the fact that, today we have the lowest number of second-class coaches in the Indian Railways in the history of the railways, where the post-independence history of the railways, in exchange for these Vande Bharat trains, which no doubt the poor of India are traveling on great numbers. The actual tax and actual fiscal resources that the center transfers to the railways are not very high, nor is defense preponderant. So if you discount pensions, in fact, it is very little. Centrally sponsored schemes and central sector schemes are a fairly large chunk of the budget. And I think it would be legitimate to ask why that is so. But that would be something that all states could argue. Okay, that is separate from the horizontal devolution. But if you accept the principle that the center is going to sort of intervene in education, health, roads, highways, housing, social welfare, right, and employment, then I'm afraid the center has every prerogative to set the conditionalities. After all, they do provide the majority of funding. They started with 100. They brought it down to 80. Now they'll bring it down to 60. That's excellent negotiation with the center. Why should they not do that? It's only when states like Tamil Nadu walk away from a centrally sponsored scheme that the center gets frazzled. Now, 9 states did that. Then the center would have no choice but to come back to the negotiating table and renegotiate these matters. But the point is that 9 states are not doing that. Only 1 state is from time to time.
Maybe something that they can discuss in the next South Finance Ministers meet, right?
They're also very confident this collective effort that he's talking about, it's never going to happen.
I would like them to also discuss in the South Finances meeting what they're going to do about the fact that 82% of Telangana's GSDP is produced in 3 districts. And 75% of Karnataka's GSDP is produced in 4 districts. And the district of Ranathapuram in Tamil Nadu has worse human development indicators than half the districts in Uttar Pradesh. There's a little bit of inward looking that needs to be done by the southern states. I've been arguing this for a while and they're not doing it. So all this self-congratulatory business will not work. They continue to be dependent on the center in large measure because their performance in economic terms has been better than Bihar, but highly uneven. Expectations have gone up and they're not able to meet them. Hence, they are still in dependence relationship part 2 with the central government.
Perhaps that's where an Manrega will come into play because people in Raichur in Karnataka or Bidar might still want to avail that scheme. Perhaps not so many
But you see,
in Bangalore.
politically, whenever, like, for example, there's a crisis in the Congress within Karnataka, so the first thing that comes up is development is very Bengaluru-centric or Mysore-centric and you don't pay attention to the other districts, right? I'll quickly go across Nandini, just pull her in because federalism, economy, we discussed a bit. We'll just look at the other dimensions also of this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most commonly spoken about, especially South states that we talk about, what resonates is language, for instance. Pooja spoke about NEP as well. That is one trigger, that's a regular trigger. Interestingly, while we talk about NEP and imposition of Hindi, for instance, while Tamil Nadu has a 2-language policy, Karnataka does have a 3-language policy. So most of us, we did study Hindi. And yet today, it's what was discussed in a political space about, cultural federalism. Now, in a way, has moved on to the streets, if you might, because to just quote a real world example of this is what the friction in Bangalore, for instance, about Hindi. A lot of us do speak Hindi. I mean, we do learn it in schools, but there is now a reluctance, and everything is directly. It is now every time an incident occurs, maybe of a road rage or somebody speaks in Hindi, it turns into that. And I've heard even in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, recently I was hearing that there is slowly a demand. A couple of my friends got attacked for not speaking Marathi. I mean, unheard of in Mumbai. I don't know if it's an effect of that, if it's that's a migration issue that they're facing with, but it is a trigger. And now, we laugh about it, right? I still haven't been able to pronounce this acronym they have. And it is an acronym. It's not an abbreviation. They mean it as an acronym. They want that. All these tongue twisters we have with Hindi.
What is the BNSS?
Viksit Bharat, VB.
No, the BNS.
Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita.
There is also the Indian Evidence Act, which is, don't even ask me.
No, that's the problem, right? There are two components. One is the emotional part of it, saying that, in my state, my language, that is something we can argue about, whether it's Dhanya, I think.
Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam.
So it's all with a touch of Sanskrit, by the way. Huh? Many of these words has a...
It makes perfect sense in Telugu, by the way. It's a word-for-word translation into Telugu. All those three words exist in Telugu. So this is a bit overblown.
No, I think it exists. I think it exists in all languages. Sakshya, Adhiniyam. Adhiniyam, I don't know if it's in Malayalam, but yeah. No,
No, but there is a practical problem also, right? In terms of linguistic, federalism. If I go to a union bank, a centralized bank, all the forms are in English and Hindi. If my grandfather wants to go, he's not comfortable with either of those languages. He will have to learn an extra language. Why can't the forms be available in Kannada, right? Why can't announcements be made on airlines from Bangalore to Chennai?
But are we blaming all this on policies?
No, I'm not blaming it.
These are policies. It is filtering or whatever. Coming down.
Karnataka is very interesting in this. I'm blessed with, by the way, Telangana Telugu and Andhra Telugu are so different that it would be very difficult to make an announcement which people from Andhra Pradesh understood, on a Hyderabad Delhi flight. But in Karnataka, why would I only do Kannada? What about Tulu? What about Bihari? What about Konkani? So they should have, all these languages should be used in bank forms. And Tamil from Kongu Nadu should be used. Why should only Tamil from Madras be used? So this we can go on doing. Maharashtra, I've always told my friends this, that the Marathi that we speak in Mumbai and in Pune and Konkan, that Konkanist Marathi is very different from what is spoken in Marathwada, which has a lot of Persian in it. So we are on shaky terrain here but in principle, I think nowadays, especially with technology, it is not an impossible fact. It's all we are worrying about is convenience of citizens to have as many languages as you want, out there. I mean, all I need, when I go to South Korea, there's a translation app in the cab. It can do like 30 languages for me. So I can do that. It's not a problem.
No, but it's also telling somebody you're a second-class citizen in
your
own country.
What we are discussing is that there is a lot of trickling anger on whether it's policy at the central level or whatever, which goes into everyday problems, right? Like there was one time when we were only reporting about auto drivers and somebody else fighting in the auto because they're not talking in Hindi. And everything is projected as there is a Hindi imposition on us.
Now even the most innocuous exchange gets amplified as a tension. And
Nandini, we've not had any of this in the past 4 months.
Touch wood.
Yeah,
do not
do it.
I'm sorry, I saw a video just 4 days ago. Again, a Bangalore issue. It's again auto exchange between the driver and the passenger.
Is Narayan Murthy from Karnataka?
Yes, he is. He's a Kannada-speaking Murthy, not Telugu-speaking Murthy.
And Irakani is not. Irakani is a God Saraswat Brahmin from the coast. I know that.
Yes, but I think they speak Marathi and Kannada at home. The Kannada-speaking too.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, it's all very mixed up. The peninsula has never been a unilingual place. I think actually part of the reason why you're getting this sort of, other than Tamil Nadu, where it's a very well-organized political movement with good reason for it. At least in Karnataka and Telangana, and shortly I'm sure in Andhra when Google Garu comes to Vizag, is that the people who are making money in the modern economy, in Karnataka and Telangana are not the original inhabitants. The original inhabitants make money from rent seeking. They make rents of the modern people. Basically, they're all sort of land people. If you have land, you make money if you're Kannada. Right? If you have land, you make money if you're Tulu. And a large chunk of the modern economy is run independently of these people because these people make their rents, buy big SUVs, buy big houses and go to Bangkok for holidays. Right, fine. That's one economy. And then you have the people actually working in Andhra, in the pharma space, in the IT space. So this is causing a tension of being left behind. And that is expressing itself, in my view, as a language issue, as it should, as a language and culture issue.
No, I think there is also this other class. I mean, your auto driver on the road, your bus driver, there is a huge working class that cannot speak any other language but the local language. But they usually buy or trilingual. For example, the construction laborers in Bangalore, say about 20-25 years ago, were mostly from Tamil Nadu. But they managed to pick up Kannada and speak it quite efficiently. Now, the ones that are coming in from, say, Jharkhand or Bihar are not being able to. And that's where friction comes in. Their Mestri is a Kannadiga, but he's having to learn Hindi to speak to them. Of course, we can talk about exploitation on why they're being brought in from Jharkhand and Bihar. That's a different conversation. But I'm saying only on the linguistic aspect of it, there is some reluctance or inability, I'd say, to learn the local language, which is what is causing this from the working class too, I feel.
And the policy solution to that is very simple in Karnataka. Less so in Andhra. You get Canara Bank, Syndicate Bank, Vijaya Bank, all Karnataka banks, to start implementing your pro-language policy, and you'll be good. Get Mohandas Pai to back it. He backs so many things. Let him do something constructive for a change and say, let's have these languages spoken in Karnataka by these three banks.
So if you're looking at a road rage incident or whenever these things are highlighted, right, the ones that become viral, you find the class of people to be very different, right? There is this working class Kannadiga, and the offender who the Hindi speaking person is usually an upper class.
Middle class or upper class?
Middle class, upper middle class. So it is also shown to be somebody who's not unaware of the imposition of the language as such it is. They are supposed to be, if a working class Bihari doesn't get the same, people are more accommodative. But it's not so in that case. So that's also interesting to show.
But Dhanya, I think the Congress's track record on this hasn't been great either. Yes, the BJP, I think BJP always takes what the Congress has done, the mistakes, to another level.
On steroids.
On steroids, like I said.
But Congress this time is outdoing BJP again with the hate speech. There have been
That
several
too.
bills in Karnataka
But
which
I'm
we've
saying,
been criticizing.
who has been in power, who has formed the union government, has had a track record of both. One is this linguistic federalism. But if we can also zoom out and look at how Congress has not fared well on issues of federalism, right? Congress had the track record of, I think, 130 to 140 times of imposing president's rule. Of course, BJP does it through the back door. I must say, Operation Kamala, this, that, and using governors as much as they can to destabilize a legitimately elected government, not allowing them to function. But that too has to be taken into account. Today, Congress is talking about federalism because they are in power in states, not at the center. So the fact that India was never imagined to be a perfect federal state is also a problem, right? At that time, it made sense because it was a quasi-federal structure, because you needed a heavy center or there could be secessionist sentiments. But going forward, that sentiment kept getting stronger, although the Union of India is not as much as in threat now. What do you have to say, Dr. Roy? Do you think that it's just exploiting a weak system by whichever
It's an
party?
interesting question you ask, because when I was in the 13th Finance Commission, I used to write speeches for the chairperson. That was one of my jobs. And they used to come to states. We were going to Kerala, and I think because Kerala has such a bad fiscal record, I had written a sentence saying that the Union government, the Union of India, cannot be expected to subsidize any of its constituents. And the Indian Federation, cannot be expected to subsidize any of its constituents. So those things would go to the Law Ministry for vetting. Law Ministry came back and said, India is not a federation. I said, what? It's actually not. And then I looked at it and he's right. I mean, they're absolutely right. India is a union. And it's a very interesting union. I've not seen any other in my history. It's not like the US or, Germany or anything. The states had not associated to form the Union of India. The union was created and then the states were formed. the states are administratively formed and can be dismissed at the stroke of a pen and reorganized, even converted, as we know, into union territories overnight. Right? But once they are created, they have constitutional presence and powers. But then they can be destroyed and other states can be created with constitutional presence and powers. So the state list in India does not specify the states to which the list applies. Hence, India is not a federation. To put another way, one solution to the Karnataka problem for me would be to divide the state into 5 parts. If I really you should be lucky that Mr. Modi doesn't talk to me anymore. But I would divide it into the Bihari part and the northern Karnataka, give all the Reddys from Bellary one bit. Hyderabad, Karnataka, it used to be called, right?
You're safe in Hyderabad. You're going to get us like attacked on the streets.
Why? Hyderabad is fine. I mean, I could do that in Telangana. Two can play the same game. I can divide this into northern Telangana and southern Telangana. But the point of making is the center can do all this if it wants to. The question is whether you have the consent of the people to do it or not. Now, there is no question that if I try to play these games in Tamil Nadu between Kongu Nadu and, Madurai, it's not going to work. Because the state will be up in arms. It's a limit to which the central government can do it. On the other hand, as you saw in Andhra Pradesh, there was a genuine demand in the United Andhra Pradesh for the state to be divided. Now, in Maharashtra, I think in the case of Maharashtra, it's touch and go, frankly, at this time. So, these so-called state loyalties are constructed. They're not linguistic. Karnataka is a standing example of that. Karnataka is not a linguistic unity. By no means. And I'm told I don't speak Tamil, that the Tamil spoken in Tamil Nadu, between northern Tamil Nadu and southern Tamil Nadu, is quite similar to Shanghainese and Mandarin. In China, if I go to Shanghai, I don't understand the Mandarin they speak. So this is quite common. So these are sort of political, cultural impositions on fundamentally what are administrative units which have been laid out and which become sources of power. And you're forgetting one dimension here. You're not forgetting, we all forget. Which is why we don't have local government in the country. Because once you create these states, you create power centers that actively, poor Ramakrishna Hegde tried so hard in Karnataka. It all came to nothing in the end. Because he was fighting something very terrible. He was fighting the organization of elite oligarchies into unities, which would not allow whatever happened for local government at the end of the day. So local government continues to be relevant. Let me give you the example of Andhra Pradesh. So Andhra Pradesh has Reddys in both Telangana and in Andhra. But then very powerful and a very small minority, but very powerful in Telangana, Velamas, who don't really exist in Andhra Pradesh in any significant measure. Kammas exist in Andhra Pradesh, like the current TDP, which is essentially a Kamma support. Core base is Kamma. And they're a very powerful caste in Kapus. Komtis exist in both. But so basically what you get is various caste realignments happening. Much as you see in Karnataka between the Bokkadigas and Lingayats. They have different powers in different kinds of places. So all these things make it a bit facile to talk about states as if they genuinely represent a collective unity. That being said, that does not detract from the federal question. And it does not detract from the larger question which I have been raising, that one of the fault lines that exists at the moment in federation, very simply, is that the peninsula, I'll exclude my own state for a minute, I'm never sure quite what they are. I'll exclude Maharashtra. But the peninsula states, the 5 peninsula states, are 5 times as prosperous as what I call the Great Indian Plain, to get away from the states talk. The Great Indian Plain is the dust belt that starts in Punjab and ends in West Bengal. Okay. That part is about 40 to 50% less prosperous than the peninsula. But the peninsula is basically, about 1/3 in terms of population. Let me put this very starkly for your listeners and viewers. If you look at Arvind Subramaniam and Divesh Kapoor in their latest book, bring out one very interesting statistic, that the 5 states of peninsular India grew as fast as China in the last 30 years. So India's falling behind China is entirely because of the low growth of the Great Indian Plain. Just imagine, the 5 southern Indian states grew as fast as China. Now you have this fault line because political power is there in the Great Indian Plain, and that fault line is erupting in the way people are voting also. And the economic power is here in the peninsula. That is the real sort of, if you like, sub-Indian fault line that we will have to contend with. And I really hope, looking ahead, since you're discussing 2025, the Finance Commission has submitted its report in 2025. That report, I'm predicting to you, will be released to Parliament one day before the budget or on the day of the budget. Everybody will forget about that report and they'll talk about the budget. It's an old trick we have been playing since the 14th Finance Commission. Okay, 14th Finance Commission has happened, 15th Finance Commission has happened, and they will try and get away with it by doing this. And all your great South Indian MPs are going to fall for this trick. I'm giving you this prediction now. We will start talking about, 1.5% change in income tax, 2.5% change in long-term capital gains tax. There will be no debate with the Finance Commission. And that debate will then happen outside the Delhi Sultanate, which is what I call Delhi. It will happen outside the capital. And therefore, the forum where this debate ought to happen will again be bypassed. I think that is the real imminent federal danger. Because if that happens, then there is nothing in terms of any bargaining to happen between that and the next delimitation. That calendar is set. There will be a census by 2027. On the basis of that, we will have delimitation. So the economic side of the bargain will be sealed by this Finance Commission. I'm not expecting a radical report. But if the report is not radical as business as usual, then I'm afraid, the prosperous states of peninsular India will have lost a very great opportunity to keep the balance even.
So we started the discussion with Dr. Roy saying that there are two things which didn't happen, which is the delimitation and the census. Delimitation is, of course, and you're also saying that the fault lines are that there is a peninsular India and the Great Plain. We are expecting that next year when the delimitation does get announced, that there is...
And the census.
Yeah, and the census, yeah. So delimitation comes after the census, yeah.
But I'm saying census will make things more difficult for the peninsular India because it will once again quantify exactly how much of a disadvantage we are at in terms of numerical. And the fact that we haven't elected BJP as many times as the other states have, we lose all our bargaining power. So, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to go that far back. If you take the projections from the 2011 population that were published in 2022, I've looked at that data. I can tell you this, that the new parliament, if it does reflect accurately the adult voting population of the country, and that is a legitimate demand, unless you want to argue that we should not have universal adult franchise, you have no choice if you're going to be one country, except to have, what we have had since 71 is a bit of a farce, right? Where UP, Bihar and the Great Indian Plain is underrepresented and South India is overrepresented. We have to be honest about this. Politically, this is not right. If you make things right, then, and I've said this to every chief minister in the peninsula, including my own in Maharashtra, UP plus Bihar plus any one state in the Great Indian Plain, even Odisha, will form a permanent majority in the Parliament of India. You will not need the consent of any state except UP plus Bihar plus any one other state. Even UP plus Bihar plus Jharkhand will be enough. That we already know from 2022. I'm assuming things have not gotten much better between 2022 and 2027. So it will be even worse. And that is why it is very important for this ball to be picked up by the peninsular states when the Finance Commission report comes out, to argue that it is not merited not to have a discussion about delimitation without simultaneously discussing the horizontal devolution of resources between the states and the vertical devolution. It is very important for the peninsula to bring these things together.
But are you saying that there's not a formula which can be worked out for delimitation itself? Because people have been asking for lots of different formulas, right? Like how to do delimitation in different ways. Are you saying that the delimitation will happen no matter what, but we'll have to just look at how the finances are distributed?
It ought to, right? It ought to happen no matter what. Every adult male in this human in this country should have one vote. If you agree with that principle, it's very difficult to see what else we could do with delimitation except fool around with it, like we have been doing since 1971, where we have sort of frozen the population of India when I was 4 years old. Okay, so that's ridiculous. I mean, beyond the point, we'll have to come up with a solution. So the solution is going to have to be that, yes, you have one person, one vote, but there will have to be certain accommodations made regarding this. And I've written about this. I mean, one way to do it is look at the three possible solutions to it. And there are only three solutions. One is that North India's growth converges to the growth of the peninsula. And if you can say that this is going to happen over the next 20 years and we come up with a plan, then we can have staggered delimitation, where the vote share of the North increases, but their prosperity also increases, and therefore less of the heavy lifting is done by the South. The second is the population of the North just moves to the South, and your entire discussion on language tells me that's not going to happen. It's another reason, caste. That Tamilians, that Biharis become Tamilians. My father's family moved to Maharashtra, 108, 112. I'm Maharashtra. I think like a Maharashtra. That's only because my father's family was Brahmin. So interoperability between Brahmins and Dhanyas is much higher than between Yadavs in Andhra, and they don't marry each other and that sort of thing, right? So there are those issues, and there are rigidities in our society which prevent the logical solution, which is the population just shifts where the money is. And the third is that the South prospers 10 times more than it has now. That's not going to happen because the South remains caught in a low productivity trap. But if we can pick up these three solutions and have a discussion on them, then it is possible to have a bargain on federalism. Otherwise, the bargain will be a very attritive one. And I'm not quite sure how it will pan out. It is complicated by the fact that the ruling party is actually the ruling party of the Great Indian Plain. It is not the ruling party of the peninsula. So yeah, there's a third option. The ruling party wins every state in the peninsula. And then khel khatam. The matter ends. But so I'm just, as an analyst, pointing out to the various options that we have. But none of these options seems to be likely to obtain. I don't see the DMK disappearing tomorrow. I don't see the Congress in the South disappearing tomorrow. I certainly don't see the BJP, whatever they might win in one city of Thiruvananthapuram, sort of winning in any substantial measure in Kerala. So that option is also not on the table. You have one nation, one party, one vote, one Bapu, one prime minister. That's okay then, no? Then we become unitary for all practical purposes. But I don't see that happening. And partly it is linked to prosperity, that the prosperity of the South is so much higher than the prosperity of the North. So therefore, we are going to go through a very troublesome intermediate phase. And it is very important here, I think, for the peninsula to be able to argue rationally about postponing delimitation, but also giving a value proposition which has to involve convergence of the Great Indian Plain with South India. There is no other option. That without that convergence, we are going to be in a very tough situation, because I've done this research. There are only two countries in the 20th century where the majority of the population lived in one part and the minority lived in another. Both those countries don't exist anymore. One was the former USSR and the other is the former Yugoslavia. America is not like this. All the rich people live in New York and California, and all the poor Trump fellas in South Dakota or wherever. Look at Europe. All the little countries, Portugal and Greece are the backward ones, right? Nothing happens there. Nothing happens in Greece. Nothing happens. But all the serious people live in UK, France, Germany, Italy. Ditto for Japan, ditto for Indonesia. So India is in a very unique position if you look at it globally also. And this is something that I think politically we have to be responsible enough to recognize and navigate our way. And therefore, we have to do some deals. One of the deals we have to do is that the South has to have a strategy for investment in the North. That is very, very important. The North needs jobs. The South needs well-paid jobs. The two are not sort of a zero-sum game. So if you're able to produce high productivity, well-paying jobs in South India and are able to invest in the North to produce just jobs in North India, jobs like Tamil Nadu used to be in 1990 or Karnataka used to be, then we are going to be in business. But that kind of national and regional conversation needs to happen urgently. And it's not happening. There's too much of zero-sum gaming going.
I have one quick question. I want to pick on something you said. One of the options you gave was that North becomes more prosperous. And that's where I think we're stuck, right? Because every time they say that, okay, a poorer state, less developed states needs more central funds. But that's just not happening. The needle is just not moving.
But he's also giving a solution that South has to think of how to develop the North also.
So yeah, apart from investing in the North, how else will the North get more prosperous?
Well, you have to, there are many things you can do. Let me put it this way. One is you can invest in the North. And there's a problem there. I've been to Tirupur, I've done my research on also to Gujarat. Why are we importing 300 rupee shirts from Bangladesh and Vietnam when Tirupur is making 3,000 rupee shirts this far for me? Why are we unable to make those shirts? They're not being made anywhere in India. That demand is all in the North. Now the shop floor in Tirupur has enough qualified skilled workers from the North. right? The margins are lower in the north. I'm not suggesting that, Mr. Tirupur entrepreneur go and sit in Bihar. But he can finance his person to the shop floor to go there. Why is that investment not happening? I'm not suggesting any subsidy. There's money to be made there, right? You're going to substitute for imports from Bangladesh and Vietnam by getting people from Bihar and UP too. Now, if there is a governance issue or something like that, instead of muttering about it from the sidelines, let's bring it out in the open and say that Bihar is badly governed and I need X, Y, Z, A, B, C for Bihar for southern investment to come to the north. You can do that. But you're not doing that. You're sort of muttering sub-first under the table in this sort of passive-aggressive way. And that actual investment that is urgently needed is not happening. We have to be able to invest there. Second problem. What are they using? I've said this to many, many political leaders in the South. Tell me, it's a rhetorical question, not so rhetorical. You guys are in Bangalore, right?
Yes.
Sorry. What is the price of a cup of tea in Bengaluru?
You get it for about 10-15 rupees now.
Starts.
Also
with
40 rupees?
Yes.
Also
40 rupees?
Yeah.
Also of 300 rupees.
Bengaluru is a very rich city, very rich city. Why is a cup of tea available for only 10 rupees in Bengaluru, which is the same price as in Bihar? Because the guy who's running that Bengaluru tea shop is not from Karnataka. So like Hyderabad, like Chennai, like Kerala, a number of these informal sector businesses rely on North Indian labor from the Great Indian Plain. What does that mean? That means that South Indian productivity is not being enhanced by this labor supply. It is being used to perpetuate cheap goods and feudal lifestyles for southern elites. This is something we've got to recognize.
Are you suggesting North Indian who runs a tea shop here should charge more from South Indian so that...
No, I'm saying that the North Indian is able to charge less because you had that labor coming. Imagine a situation where they did not come there. All your tea would be for 40 rupees. Your per capita income is the same as Indonesia. Nobody sells tea for 10 rupees in Indonesia. I have 9 maids sitting in my average house in Jubilee Hills cleaning somebody's house in some 19th century weirdo way. Some people upstairs are reconstructing their house because that's what you do when you have black money. So what are they doing? Look at those. If you look at those
You're clearly not
workers,
the Resident
they look
Welfare
like something out of
Association
some ancient
president.
Satyajit Ray movie. They're carrying that dusty and they're carrying things on their head. I talked to them, where are they from? They're from Chhattisgarh. Obviously, they're from Chhattisgarh. So what the South is doing is they're taking all this migrant labor and misusing them. They're not using them to improve productivity or improve cost effectiveness. They're using them to perpetuate feudal lifestyles and to retail practices of production such as construction, which do not belong in a high-income country. So the second thing the South needs to do, and this would require internal revolution, is to start behaving like a middle-income country. To start building things like a middle-income country does. To start producing things like a middle-income country does. I want to see the sales of Dyson triple in South India in the next 3 years. Then I'll know we are on the right track. Because we should not be wasting our time, mopping floors with like jhadoos and things like that. South India is like $4,000 per capita, man. I mean, get with it. But we don't. So we want to be rich, but then we want to be feudal, and then we want to sit here and use North Indian labor to provide 10 rupees tea. This is a very unvirtuous cycle. So one is outward looking, since you ask me what, invest. Second is pay attention to productivity and jobs. Let me give you another example of how the elites here are skinning off all the money. So Tamil Nadu is 4 times as prosperous as Bihar. But wage rates in Tamil Nadu, any wage, urban, rural, agricultural, is only 80% more than Bihar. It should be 400% more if you look at GDP growth. Where's the remaining 320% going? Ask somebody living in Poisgad. I know exactly where it is going. Ask somebody living in Jubilee Hills. So there's a lot of extraction happening here by the rich also, by local elite. It's a South Indian problem. And this is being ignored. So rather than having that virtuous cycle where everybody's wages go up because productivity goes up, right? We are still focused on trying to extract. I'll give you a final example. Would you agree with me that the best possible blue-collar job you can get in India is to work for Apple or Samsung? Right? There can't be any better job.
Is it? Okay, fine.
Is there
We'll
any
give
better
it to you
job,
now.
blue-collar job, other than the government of India? Blue-collar, making things, really making things. Is there a better job you can get in manufacturing?
We'll
No,
just agree with you for the
Tamil
sake...
Nadu is a high
yeah.
manufacturing state.
For the sake of the example, we'll agree with you now.
There's no better. I mean, look, it's better to work for them than to work for like Bidla or something. So, come on. I mean, working for a Rayon factory for the Bidla is not my idea of progress. Working for Apple is cool. Working for Samsung is cool. That's what jobs people want. Now, these factories are all in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has been brilliant at getting car factories and all this. Great share of manufacturing. What is the wage of a median worker with 5 years experience in Samsung and a high experienced worker in Apple? 55,000 rupees a month. I argue that's too low. You know why? Somebody with a respectable median job in a high-end blue-collar aspirational job in a blue-collar factory like Apple or Samsung should be getting paid at least enough to pay income tax. Otherwise, where's your prosperity? Where is that distribution of prosperity? 55,000 is just over half the minimum amount required to pay income tax, which is 1 lakh rupees a month. Right? Most people, also you take your techies in Bangalore and all that. If you look at the starter jobs there, most people are not paying income tax. Most people in my GCCs are not paying income tax. So we're just not creating enough prosperity in the modern economy in South India to enable incomes to go up in ways in which we can modernize and raise productivity. That's our problem in peninsular India, right? And the other problem is creating jobs there. Now, if you think there's a better job than Apple in manufacturing, let me know and I'll apply.
We are not interested in those jobs. Okay.
Sometimes I think we also can be called blue-collar jobs. We do. We are, I think, combination of blue and white, journalists at least.
Okay, so we'll end. Nandini, you have any final comments to make? No, okay, Pooja?
I think I agree with that part. Just a thing that all of these states are prosperous, but like you pointed out, not uniformly developed, which is exactly why we still need to avail.
We go
as
back
perverse,
to the
yes, where
thing,
we started
it's
from.
an
The
Ouroboros of
perverse
sort,
term, I have a great objection with the term centrally sponsored scheme, because that in itself indicates a position of power where you're sponsoring scheme with money that is yours. So states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu still need that money, which is why we need to renegotiate whether we need it at all. And also, since you're here with us on the panel, talk about tax devolution more aggressively, because it just doesn't make sense. It's very unfair to all states.
I would also say that is the only thing you need to talk about. I think it is in the interest of the peninsula and all states that the vertical devolution be aggressively contested. The centre is doing far too much outside its own remit with money that legitimately should go to the states, and then we can decide how the states get it. That's a different matter. But I agree with you there that if Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Kerala need the money, then the centre needs to take less and focus just on defence and railways. That's a legitimate argument, a completely.
The political focus has been too much on the horizontal devolution, because that makes for better speeches as opposed to vertical devolution. So, yeah.
Okay, so we will come.
Little more collective thinking would be great.
Yeah, but I like the idea of the finance ministers talking about two different things. One is more development spread across your districts, and the second was about how you should be resisting centrally sponsored scheme itself. Okay, so we'll end the show with recommendations from everybody. Nandini, what is your recommendation?
Oh.
Don't say you don't have one.
I definitely have one. This is something that came out a few months ago. In fact, it came out in January, but it resonated. This particular reporter won an award for the story. This is a report from Scroll, written by Nolina Minj, I think. It's about the murky, unregulated world of psychological counseling in India.
Nolina is superb. I mean, all her byline stories are to be read.
This is really hits the dot with her coverage, and it's a very, very important aspect, because as we're speaking, more and more people are becoming aware of mental health and seeking therapy and counseling. So this is a great, reality check about what's out there. So I really recommend that people read it. It's an amazing story.
So I started watching Arghya Sengupta's interview with Karan Thapar from a couple of years ago. This is when he'd written a book, and it was so thought-provoking. It was a very combative interview. I've just ordered the book. This is because he wrote a book he was being interviewed. It's called The Colonial Constitution. I've just ordered. I haven't gotten it yet, but I think even if you don't agree, he basically says that the constitution is colonial in nature. So I thought it's a very thought-provoking place to start looking at constitution itself, yeah.
Dr. Rai, what is a recommendation, or what are your recommendations?
You know what? I don't really have one. No, I don't have one. I have lovely recommendations to do with United States. But I think India is a country that is not amenable to book writing, because I haven't written one myself. You end up looking pretty stupid in 5 years. For example, I agree with Arghya. I'm very fond of him, a lot of time for it. The constitution is colonial. So what do we do instead? How about a Hindutva constitution? I rest my case about books.
Okay.
And it takes a separate course to understand. I know what language it will be.
Okay, I have 2-3 recommendations. One is this Jail Silliman's article in Scroll, Bondi and Beyond, Lessons from Kochi in a Fractured World. So he takes Kochi where you have Jewish settlements, but there are no Jews there as such, but you have these Fort Kochi and these settlements, right? So he looks about how when anti-Semitism is on the rise, you can criticize Israel, but you can also criticize what happened in the Bondi Beach and how Kochi is a good example. Sukanya Shanta's series on The Wire, which looks at how the NIA has been functioning, where they force people to give confessions saying they've done something wrong, and that is how the NIA is getting convictions. So that's the good series to read. And do read our story, which is the interview of the man who has gotten convicted for rape, Palsa Suni. Nidhi read this interview. It took almost 12-13 months to actually sit across the table to a rapist and ask him why did he do, and why did he do it, what was the provocation, what is the money he got, etc. So please do read that story. That's 3 recommendations. So thank you, Dr. Roy, for joining us. Thank you to my producer Bhuvan. Ajay is not here today. To Sukanya, who listens in, to Yana and everyone else. Do keep listening to South Central.